distinguished invitees and delegates, an exclusive conference on the subject like Essential Coomaraswamy is rare and unique. IGNCA and Mythic Society continue to organize well-conceived and conceptualized conferences and seminars. Obviously, highly focused topics are always selected that provide scope for well-researched papers, and it is a delightful experience for the scholars to present their findings at the academic conferences conducted through Mythic Society and IGNCA. I am immensely happy and deem it an honor to present before the august assembly of learned members and my keynote address on the legend Ananda Coomaraswamy and his ideologies, and would like to dedicate this address to Dr. Kapila Vatsayana, the renowned art historian of our times and the founding trustee and the first member secretary of IGNCA, who continued the legacy and ideologies of Ananda Coomaraswamy through her immense contributions to Indian arts, history, literature, and culture. Ananda Coomaraswamy was born on 22nd August 1877 in Colombo, that is Ceylon, to a Ceylon Tamil legislator and philosopher Sir Muthu Coomaraswamy and his English wife Elizabeth Beebe. Unfortunately, his father died at the tender age of 2 and was taken to England by his mother. He was educated in schools and colleges at London with a degree in geological sciences. He was posted to initiate the Geological Survey of Ceylon and served as director and earned the Doctor of Science degree. His writing career began while serving there, and India beckoned him towards the in-depth study of Indian philosophy, art, literature, and aesthetics. During his fieldwork in India and Sri Lanka, he collected historical and contemporary paintings, sculptures, manuscripts, texts, archival material. When he was appointed as curator to Boston Museum, USA in 1970, all his rare collections were considered as precious objects and materials, and today they are priceless collections of Boston Museum. He served this museum till the last day of his life. Ananda Coomaraswamy is a true legend, or a legendary figure, who proposed an insightful vision to Indian philosophy, art, culture at a point of time when Indian culture and civilization was termed as barbaric, with a notion and needed to transform to be civilized status only by the colonial masters. Coomaraswamy, through his research and writings, gave a befitting answer not only to the colonial masters but also to the entire Western world by championing the purpose, function, and aesthetic notion of Indian philosophy, art, and culture. With profound conviction on the Vedantic foundations, Coomaraswamy set his thought process on the basis of original sources, that is Shastras, Puranas, Upanishads, and scriptures, while discussing the subjects that included Indian philosophy, literature, painting, sculpture, architecture, music, dance, aesthetics, crafts traditions, and oral traditions too. His methodology of sourcing the texts before interpreting the inherent meaning of any aspect of life or art has created a marga, that is the pathway, for writers and thinkers who believe that art and literature are indivisible aspects to understand Indian cultural ethos. Indian writers, thinkers, philosophers, historians down the lane tread on the fields of Ananda Coomaraswamy, and his legacy is followed relentlessly even in present times. The essential Ananda Coomaraswamy. Arvind Sharma, while writing the foreword to the book Compendium of Essential Writings of Ananda Coomaraswamy, edited by his son Rama P. Coomaraswamy, puts in a lucid way as the publication of his seminal contributions in the form of the compendium of his essential writings that you hold in your hands is therefore to be greatly welcomed. It conveys to us the flavor of his thoughts as water collected in a small shell on the shore conveys the flavor of the entire ocean. Of course, it cannot convey a sense of the ocean's magnitude, but it earns our gratitude in conveying a sense of its taste, of how the divine dialectic of the transformation of religion into art and art into religion might hold the key to the regeneration of both life and art in modern world. I unquote. David Frawley on the book Essential Ananda Coomaraswamy, he quotes, Coomaraswamy's work is as important as that of Joseph Campbell or Carl Jung and deserving of the same attention. The essential Ananda Coomaraswamy is a good way to approach his extensive writings that explore in depth and in detail the essence of culture and spirituality, both East and West, both ancient and modern. Coomaraswamy never got out of frame. Rather, his intellect reflects in his writings, ranging multiple levels from the context of theorizing human values. His writings encompass more than 1,000 research papers, articles, and books of immense value for all generations. His son Rama Coomaraswamy wrote in the introduction of the book Essential Ananda Coomaraswamy that how is it possible to situate a person who was a recognized scholar in many areas, whose total literary output numbered well over 1,000 items, value of which has not diminished with time. Further, he states that Ananda Coomaraswamy once said that he wrote to clarify his own thoughts and that if his efforts helped others, he was delighted. This is all of us, like even Shatabdani Ganesh or myself or Deepak Kanal, anyone who continues to write and think, we think that we are trying to learn or unlearn ourselves. That is our motto. And if someone is helped with our writing, we feel it is a service, that a humble service that we have done to this great culture of our country. So he also considered his scholarship and literary output as the fulfillment of his dharma and a karma yoga, the way of works by which one perfects his own soul. Certainly, in this respect, he is a spokesperson of Sanatana Dharma and inspired the world towards spiritual consciousness and universal approach of Indian cultural values. Thus, he remains undoubtedly forever essential Ananda Coomaraswamy. Coomaraswamy's profound grasp of the twin ideals of harmony and truth in Indian art helped him to understand the evolution of Indian culture as a crossing of spiritual tendencies. the Western approach to Indian studies failed to impress Coomaraswamy. Instead, he approached from the Indian perspective, dwelling into the scripture to theorize the form and the content with regard to Indian art and aesthetics. His perception of form is in continuity with matter. As he remarks, form in the traditional philosophy does not mean tangible shape, but is synonymous with idea and even with soul. For example, is called the form of the body if there be a real unity of form and matter. So keeping this in view, Kapilaji has organized great conferences on time, space, but one thing she could not, I always used to mention to her, matter. Matter conference has not taken place. So he was jokingly telling us, why don't you people, organize on matter? So we all have to take that responsibility. I think all scientists, of every field, matters to everyone. So I think, that will be a great thing if we are able to organize a great conference. May not be equivalent to space and time of that IGNCA did, but we can do our humble, efforts into it. So Coomaraswamy maintains his stand of designating the artistic configuration in terms of form and matter. The mid-19th century witnessed serious writing on the form and content in European art historical studies. The scholars brought out a clear format of studying the art history or history by categorizing them into painting, sculpture, architecture and decorative arts. But Coomaraswamy went beyond this kind of limitation and categorization by transcending himself into the antiquarian sources and richly layered symbolism to interpret and analyze Indian or European art and aesthetics, thereupon got the epithet as traditionalist, and that has drawn criticisms too. His thought process apparently hovered around the tenets of Indian Kala Tattva, not to compartmentalize art with craft, but respecting the craft traditions and craftsmen as the artists of the given society. Contribution of Ananda Coomaraswamy to Indian art history. Indian art history as an academic discipline has taken its birth with the prolific writings of Ananda Coomaraswamy. The second part of 19th century has seen the movement Save Heritage in European countries like France, Britain and Italy, and the same has extended to America and Asian countries. As a result, preservation, restoration, conservation and excavation of historical sites and art objects received attention, and many scholars entered the profession of serious writing on art and archaeology. India offered great scope to scholars with new discovery and excavations. On the basis of these official reports, monographs and research contents were published. Many British archaeologists, artists, linguists, officers in civil and military services were interested in the cultural heritage of India. Though their reports and interpretations were true to the facts, their agenda was to show the world that they are civilizing the savage Indians. At this juncture, India needed a scholar who would write on Indian art from Indian perspective. India and Indian art found to its advantage Ananda Coomaraswamy, who was the staunch traditionalist to write earnestly and relentlessly for 5 decades, and his writings established a distinct place for Indian art in the world art history. His treatment towards the topic is very special. Structure in an interdisciplinary and intercultural framework, understanding the nature of the art, he would go into the depth and connect himself with original sources, be it Vedic, Puranic, Buddhist and Jain scriptures, literary or even the chants sourced out from the oral traditions. In Europe, it was the age of writing art history of the Western world to showcase the European contributions to Western culture. The scholars, archaeologists, historians took the stupendous task to bring out an acceptable methodology of writing on the colossal amount of art material and literature. It was also the moment of collecting the art objects and artifacts, showcase them in newly set up museums, and writing of the books and catalogues that explained the history of the art objects. On the other side, heritage sites were taken for study with the emergence of photography and graphic arts. The heritage monuments received the attention of the governments, local bodies, and they inculcated the national pride of the time of fast changing territorial issues and political integration. Since India was under the British, what was happening in Britain had a significant impact on India by setting up of Archaeological Survey of India. Archaeologists like Cunningham, John Marshall, Henry Cousins, James Ferguson, Burgess and others took up the task of excavation, restoration and conservation of monuments. Their writings and associated photographs gave the early picture of Indian heritage monuments in print through the Archaeological Survey of India annual reports. E.B. Havel, R.C. Ganguly, R.D. Banerjee, historians like Vincent Smith, Eliot H.R. Faucher, Dubril, Longhurst, Ree A., Spooner D.B., Bhandarkar D.R., Narasimhachar, Kak R.C., Bhattacharya, Yazdani and others worked hard to publish and document the found material, which resulted in the new wave of writing. At this juncture arrived two art historians who made their mission of life to research, write and publish on Indian art, in a high perception of cultural consciousness than just from art historical perspectives. They are Ananda K, Coomaraswamy and Stella Kramarish. Kapila Vatsyayan, the erudite scholar of our times, often refers to Ananda Coomaraswamy's insightful interpretations of ideas and sources in her writings on Indian art and architecture. While explaining the core values of artistic creation such as the principles of abstraction and concretization, of the organic interconnectedness of all things, and of reducing life into impersonalized states of being, she points out whether it is Aurobindo, Coomaraswamy, Stella Kramarish, Vasudev Sharan Agrawal, or the others, art historians, who all belong to one stream of interpretation, in part or whole, point to these fundamentals which govern Indian architecture and sculpture. While remaking about the earliest phase of Indian art history, the Mauryan age, Coomaraswamy relies himself on two original, next please, contemporary sources to support the architectural analysis, namely the Arthashastra of Kautilya and Indica of Megasthenes. His pictorial interpretation of the rise and fall of the palace architecture of Ashoka is interesting from the chronological perspective, as Ashoka's palace at Pataliputra, that is the Bankipur near Patna, was described by Megasthenes as no less magnificent than that of Susa and Ecbatana palaces. It was still standing at the beginning of the 5th century CE, when Fahian tells us that it was attributed to the work of genii. But when Huinsang visited the city in the 7th century, the palace had been burnt to the ground and the place was almost deserted. Recent excavations have revealed the remains of great hall with stone pillars, which seems to have been model related to that of the pillared halls of Persepolis. You can see the ruins at present of Ashoka's hall, and that side the size of the pillar you can imagine, which is excavated, and we went there to see the site and also measure the pillars from the Art History Congress. One of the architectural forms of Buddhist tradition is stupa. Stupa has been discussed often by Coomaraswamy in various contexts, and he recognizes in the footnote on the page 50 in History and in a few years, History of Indian and Indonesian Art, 4 types of stupa forms with their shapes and continuity in the architecture of the countries where Buddhism was widely followed. Linking the Buddhist extension to South India, Coomaraswamy explains the stupa of Amaravati. He talks about stupa of Amaravati in Andhra, expressing his appreciation as the most magnificent monument. Further, he continues by appreciating as it would hardly be possible to exaggerate the luxurious beauty of the technical proficiency of Amaravati reliefs. This is the most voluptuous and the most delicate flower of Indian sculpture. Compared with such liveliness and chic as this, even the lovely traceries of Mount Abu seem to be mechanical. This powerful creation is much more nearly of Anuradhapura than of Mathura type. In this analysis of Coomaraswamy, one can notice his skills in comparing the monuments of different countries, different traditions and different periods. In my project, Amaravati and Anuradhapura, the Cultural Interface, sponsored by India Sri Lanka Foundation, I tried to explore the statement made by Ananda Coomaraswamy. Amaravati reliefs and artistic expression are much more closer to Anuradhapura of Sri Lanka than of Mauryan type. That was a delightful experience to bring out comparative analysis of 2 sets of art material in the form of sculpture, architecture, ritual tradition, contemporary site analysis and the aesthetic interpretations based on the Buddhist cardinal principles. In this, I would like to acknowledge the support by Professor Anura Manatunga for this particular project of mine, that is the Amaravati and Anuradhapura cultural interface. So I had not thanked him personally. Now it's an opportunity for me to thank him personally. Sinhalese architectural development caught the interest of Coomaraswamy before writing about Indian architecture. He takes great concern in tracing the development of Buddhist architecture from the time of his first king of Sinhala, Devanam Priyatissa. You can see the sculpture there, Devanam Priyatissa sculpture at Mihintale in our visit. So to the famous Dattagamani and later kings. The earliest Dagaba, that is stupa, from Anuradhapura, Polonnaruwa, Kandy and other sites are of great significance. Of the many works ascribed to Parakramabahu, may be mentioned the Galvihara. Now what you are seeing here are some of the stupas of Mahendra, the son of Ashoka. And the modest stupa for Sanghamitta, who was the daughter of Ashoka. They spent all their life here. According to me, she was the first female messenger historically documented to go to another country and spread Buddhism. So that was the great Sanghamitta. I always respect her so much. So these are some of the, I really went in search of Sanghamittas, because I was asking everyone in Anuradhapura, where is Sanghamittas? Do you have any kind of, they were showing me only her, some of the modern sculptures and her place and all these things. But I wanted to see her, how she is revered. So then they said one modest, insignificant, today in Anuradhapura, there is one small stupa for her. So I went and felt that, my life is fulfilled. I was searching for Sanghamitta all my life. Now we go to symbolism of architectural dome, the very, very significant path, I can say, research path of Ananda Coomaraswamy. These are some of the great stupas. If you visit Sri Lanka, I am very sure that Professor Anura Manatunga and Rajaratnam, Dr. Mallika Rajaratnam, are so proud of all these heritage sites. And great Jetavana and Abhayagiriya, great sites. And I had fortune while I was doing the field work in Abhayagiriya, one set of Burmese, the Buddhist monks were passing through. I requested them and they stood for me for the photograph. And that became the cover page for my book on my report, I can say, book yet to be published on the project I worked. This is the Galavihara from Polunarva, which I was talking about, the Parakrama Bahu first. And you can see Parinirvana of Buddha. And you just visualize Parinirvana of Buddha in Ajanta. Here, it's so simple. Form is given highest, significance. And in that Parinirvana, what's happening to his disciple Ananda? He is in silence. He doesn't know what to do. His master is no more. He is just standing there silently. This is a huge sculpture, huge, maybe from 30 feet or 40 feet of size. So Coomaraswamy also talks about Borobudur and some of the monuments, as Borobudur is like a ripe fruit matured in breathless air. The fullness of its forms is an expression of static wealth, rather the volume that denotes the outward radiation of power. Coomaraswamy not only writes beautifully on these temples, but also draws the attention of the world towards the problems crept in preserving such great monuments. His explorations of early architecture, both its imagery and terminology, were thus an important methodological transition from his early archaeological obsessions to the mental layering of his metaphysical works. To justify his understanding of ancient city and city gates, the book you must have seen, which was projected here, City Gates of India, Coomaraswamy gives examples from Sanchi Torana panels and identifies 3 city gates in that Sanchi Torana, namely city of Kapilavatsu, Vastu, city of Jatutara and city of Kushinagara. Similarly, he identifies in Amaravati. You can see the Amaravati panel also at the extreme. So there he identifies the city of Banaras, the gate, city of Banaras. From the opinions of Lipse and Meister, it is evident that Coomaraswamy's quest to know the inner essence of Indian architecture has taken him beyond art historical analysis, probably as a geologist. While sourcing the stones and metals, his inquisitive mind must have raised a query as how a crude stone or metal transformed to such a fine work, or it be sculpture, architecture, or decorative arts? What is the process behind it? Whether the same is based on any literature? And such simple questions engaged him to research on Indian art and aesthetics expression, and he tirelessly worked for 5 decades and left behind a colossal of research and contents and contribution. Coomaraswamy's research paper, The Symbolism of Architectural Dome, was published in Indian Historical Quarterly in the year 1938, has created a great furrow in the scholarly world. His concept and interpretation of dome has opened up a new way of visualizing the architectural edifice beyond the technical aspects of dome and its related units and members from progressive development or stylistic perspectives. Both Coomaraswamy and Kramarish have drawn attention to the inner meaning and symbolism of the Buddhist stupa and Hindu temple. All these architectural units, in one way or the other, are represented by perforation. Please observe the perforation created by the artist who craves the unit. Coomaraswamy's keen observation caught the perforated unit of architecture. You can see there the perforated plate. I will say why that perforated plate. At this juncture, Agni, Vayu and Aditya, which are the constituent parts of Agni Chayana or Garuda Chayana, the fire altars, are respectively represented through 3 self-perforated bricks symbolizing universal energy, Prakasha, Prabhe, Pranashakti. While interpreting the significance of roof plate on the central stupa or a shrine, Coomaraswamy interconnects with the exit of the artist after completing his divine mission through the roof plate. That means to say, because an artist, while creating the world for the god and the worshipper, he also creates a small perforated plate on the central axis to symbolically attain moksha through this moksha dwara or brahmarandra after the mission accomplished. This is a new way of interpreting the dome from the Indian perspective. So I was caught with this symbolism concept so much throughout. I was wanting to work on symbolism as a methodology in art history, but I gave this topic to my student and she did her PhD, Dr. Minu Agrawal. Please stand. Her thesis is on symbolism, a methodology in art historical interpretation. It's a very tough subject, and she dedicated a chapter on 3 philosophers, Coomaraswamy, Stella Kramarish and Kapila Vatsai. One proper chapter she has worked on this. So she knows and I know how difficult it was, how challenging it was to work on this particular art historical analysis. Coming to the last point, the sacred structure is a microcosm, the world is a likeness. The sacred structural form and space meet the needs of ritualistic and spiritual traditions that translate into metaphysical heights. Such ancient architecture expresses the sacred relationship between man and the cosmos, the thoughts and concepts associated with the symbolism of sacred space is the direct expression of the cultural facets of a given society. Thus, the spatial entity is a result of both tangible and intangible cultural heritage in the form of temple architecture with profound interlinkages with political and socio-religious perspective emerges as the supreme identity of the particular era. The richness of the contents of the sacred architecture provided scope for exploring the space in many ways. This particular yagna, known as Aptaryoma Yagna, was held in Thrissur. Shatavdani, Ganesh and myself, we were all part of this exploration. We all stayed there for 10 days to experience what is the Vedic Yagna. Then we started the day, the energy that we were energized then about 15 years back, I think. Prakash also and IGNCA, all staff were there. And till today, that energy flows into us. That is the strength of Yagna. In lifetime, one has to experience this to understand what is the Yagna for an ordinary human being. So that was a great experience. I always owe to IGNCA for us because it was a project for us. And now all the contents that we have created at that time, there were so many scientists and doctors have come from NIMHANS and management persons from IIM Bangalore and the people who wanted to test the energy before the yaga and after the yaga. All this team, whole team, we all worked for 10 days continuously and documented entire thing, and that is available today in IGNCA Vedic portal. If you are interested, you can see that website and go to Vedic portal, you find all our contents. So I just, looking at this particular, the Garuda Chayana, our mind goes back to those, moments that day and night we have spent on this site. So Coomaraswamy refers to the central altar. Please observe what I am saying with this drawing and with this altar. Coomaraswamy refers to central altar as the most significant part of the temple where the icon is consecrated, originated from the Vedic ritualistic prescription where the offerings are made through Agni, who is functioning as Missal priest. The central part of the altar is open to sky, through which the offerings are received. In a built temple, that part is a vertical passage of life. So in a built temple, it is a vertical passage of life, death and immortality. The mortal life is relieved through the center of the head, the Brahmarandra. So also, all the spiritual performance finally takes its root through the Brahmarandra in a temple which is closed on the top by the stupi or amalaka. In this way, Coomaraswamy establishes a fine thread of interconnectedness between man and the Indian temple architecture. He justifies his stand by explaining in this way, it must be realized that in India, not only are temples made with hands, the universe in likeness, but man himself is likewise a microcosm and a holy temple of our city of God. Shastra, Prayoga and Sadhana are the three components of creation. Coomaraswamy, as an art historian, always attributed a special place and concern for an artist architect, or a craftsman in his profound writing. Wherever it warrants, he explicitly writes the creative ability of an artist substantiated by his sadhana and perfect understanding of his tradition with reverence and reference to theory or Shastra. Citing from Manasara, he points out that the master architect and even his assistants were required by way of professional qualification to be acquainted both with the Vedas and with their accessory sciences. Architecture affects the whole society, and in it all other arts are harmonized in one great unity, and as such an architect should be saturated with the traditional art of his race in order that he may know how to see. Thus, for Coomaraswamy, true art corresponds to the common and collective need of the people, and it bestows, in the words of Bharata, the fourfold fruit of life Purushartha: virtue, wealth, pleasure, and spiritual freedom. The book Dance of Shiva and 14 essays, first published in 1918, in which Coomaraswamy cites the portrayal of Shiva dancing in the Golden Hall, the Kanaka Sabha, in the temple of Chidambaram, as stated in the Shiva Pradosha Stotra, visualize the cosmic significance of Shiva's dance. The Panchaloha Nataraja symbolizes what you are seeing here. It symbolizes the Panchakritya, namely Srishti, Sthiti, Samhara, Tirodhana, and Anugraha. These, separately considered, are the activities of the deities Brahma, Vishnu, Rudra, Maheshwara, and Sadashiva. The impact of this concept found in the expression of the architects in erecting the most magnificent edifices in our country. Natya Mantapa of high artistic merit in the vast premises of the temple signify as the abode of Shiva's dance. All the divine beings take part in the blissful moment of the Lord's dance, picturing vividly as Saraswati plays on veena, Indra on flute, Brahma on cymbals, Vishnu on mridangam, and while Lakshmi singing. The gods and demigods, Apsaras, Yakshas, Gandharvas stand around to witness the celestial dance and hear the music of the divine choir of the twilight. The dancing hall of Veerabhadra Temple, Lepakshi, very close to Bangalore, has the individual pillars depicting the life-size figures of the divinities, supporting with musical instruments as mentioned in Shiva Pradosha Stotra for the dance of Shiva. Although thousands of dance sculptures through the length and breadth of India portray the Natya Shastra tradition, but Karnataka sculptures stand a class. This essay made him popular in the Western world, with lasting impact on scholars like the physicist Fritz Capra. Philosophizing Dance of Shiva, he states that, I quote, hundreds of years ago, Indian artists created visual images of dancing Shiva in a beautiful series of bronzes. In our time, physicists have used the most advanced technology to portray the pattern of atomic energy in the form of the cosmic dance. The metaphor of the cosmic dance thus signifies ancient mythology, religious art, and modern physics. Similarly, C. Shivaramamurthy was inspired to work on his large compendium Nataraja in Indian art, thought, and literature. My research too has all these moorings. To begin with, the dancing sculpture of Chalukya Natya Shiva, much earlier to the model of Chola Nataraja chosen by Coomaraswamy. So, the publication, The History of Indian Art and Indonesian Art, eloquently captures the essence of Indian art through Nepal, Sri Lanka, Indonesia, Cambodia, and Burma, but Coomaraswamy carefully avoided including the Islamic period of Indian art. He derived pleasure and pride in positioning Indian art as the original contribution, while a large number of publications on Mughal art and architecture began to emerge. His book on Rajput painting made a mark, next please, made a mark in distinguishing the Mughal face, and he restrained himself from glorifying Mughal face of Indian art and architecture. Instead, he took greater interest in connecting India and South Asia through Hindu and Buddhist art and architecture. India has witnessed a pioneer in Ananda Coomaraswamy to establish a serious study of Indian miniature painting, styles and substyles, stylistic and symbolic approaches, the literary relevance, and as a museum object, its status and importance. Rajput painting was published in 2 volumes in 1916, opened a new vista for further research in Indian paintings. Karl Khandalwala, the acclaimed art critic of our country, of the opinion that though much useful research has been done in the realm of Indian miniature paintings since the days of that incomparable critic of Indian art, Ananda Coomaraswamy, in pioneer efforts, were the foundation on which others have built. Similarly, he was described by Heinrich Zimmer as the noble scholar upon whose shoulders we are all still standing. Before concluding, I would like to acknowledge I owe all my scholarship to Mysore University and Mythic Society. As a student, I used to sit in that hall where we all assembled in the morning in one corner, come at 10 o'clock and go at 5 o'clock or 5:30. All days. So people used to say it is her second home. When I was in Chitrakala Parishath, I encouraged all my students at least visit Mythic Society and look at Ananda Coomaraswamy's collection there. So we all grown, if at all. Maybe because of my age I have been asked to give the keynote address. I don't stand as a competent to talk about Ananda Coomaraswamy. If at all I am speaking few words, it is his blessings and Mythic Society, support of Mythic Society. And IGNCA also. I was the first academic head of IGNCA, and Dr. Shatabdani Ganesh was the research officer at IGNCA between 2002 and 2004 or 4 I think. For almost 3 to 4 years, we all worked together. And to support us, Dr. Pramila Lochan and Dr. Karuna Vijayendra and Professor P.V. Krishna Bhatt had given us all freedom to work. That is how we were able to, bring out so many projects and work during that period. So we owe all our scholarship to these 2 institutions, that is IGNCA and Mythic Society, and we are presenting on behalf of them. To conclude, this is an humble attempt to understand Coomaraswamy's noteworthy contribution to Indian art history and culture, the insight for original writing on Indian art, aesthetics and metaphysics begins with his thoughts. Coomaraswamy's essays provided textual connections for architectural forms and iconography of the period, starting with Mauryas. His assumptions that the beginnings of Indian architecture are to be traced to the early sutra texts that speaks of primitive structures. He has devised a method and structure to look at the Indian temples as the icons of life. He drives us to a tradition in which the two components of the creation Shastra and Prayoga emerge to reality in the sadhana of the architect, sculptor, painter, poet, dancer, musician, craftsman, who are the creators of this microcosm. On the 70th birthday address, perhaps in the last week of August 1947, Ananda K. Coomaraswamy expressed his last wish. He was in America and he was retired from the Museum of Boston, and he said that this is my 70th birthday and my opportunity to say farewell. For this is our plan and mine and my wife's to retire and return to India next year, thinking of this as a going home process. We mean to remain in India, now it is a free country, for all our lives and rest of our lives. This wish was not fulfilled. It was not fulfilled. And he breathed his last on 9th September 1947. Happened to be today, 9th September 2023, the 76th year of his death anniversary. Let us all rise to pay our humble homage to this great soul.